Y'all know what it is.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the show. This week features special guests, Mike and I. So for anybody who's been paying any kind of attention over the last few weeks, obviously the summer is a busy time of year for us and everybody else. And so we have taken to running a few classic episodes of Eggs over the last, 6 weeks or so. I think there are 5 or 6 of them. And basically what we did is Mike and I got together and we chose a few of our sort of favorites from the past. Our audience has grown and evolved and changed a lot over the last 4 years. And we had a lot of great people on early on in the show that, maybe never got their due with a broader audience. And so we wanted to sort of reshare some of those broader shows. We called them Eggs Classics. And like I say, in the last month and a half or so, there's been 5 or 6 of them. So go back and take a look. But Mike and I are back on the good foot. We're here together. Still, I think kind of a busy time for Mike, especially. So we'll get into that a little bit. But hey, hi, everybody. We missed you.
Yeah, I think we could have maybe called them rotten eggs too, because over time, things rot. I don't know.
Hey, now they were good. I like them.
No, they were great.
So anyway, but yeah, so I mean, as I sort of have alluded to, I mean, obviously we were really busy this year. I mean, for people who know, Mike is a DJ by trade and by craft. He's a highly sought after DJ in the Pacific Northwest, especially, and by God, it's wedding season. So Mike, you want to talk a little bit about just kind of what's been going on with you and work and all that stuff? I've seen some pictures of the places you've been working, and I'm impressed.
Yeah, they're it is wedding season, and these are weddings that were initially scheduled almost 2 years ago now, and a lot of them have rolled over from last year into now, and it's nice that they're actually finally getting done. But
yeah, I was going to say that's a good sign, I think, probably for the happy couple. They've made 2 years of just kind of
planning a wedding.
It's a holding pattern. But basically, they had to sit there for 2 years and decide if they hated each other. And so I think maybe the extra time wasn't a bad idea.
So they, like one of the most stressful things you can do is plan a wedding. And then not only to have to plan it initially before COVID and then deal with COVID and then plan it a second time, and sometimes even plan it a third time. I had one that rescheduled for last year thinking that COVID was going to kind of go away before then, and then it didn't, so they had to pick another date and get all their vendors lined up a second and third time, and it's just been a complete nightmare. And it's nice to get them like out of the way and done, but at the same time, all these weddings have paid 2 years ago. So a lot of this work that I'm doing right now is essentially like I'm doing landscaping to pay for the trip to go do the wedding that I got paid for two years ago.
Right. Yeah, no, it's one thing. I mean, we do the same thing in our business. We take a deposit for the work we do. And yeah, I mean, these people pay their deposit and then, the wedding hadn't happened yet. So, I mean, I guess that's how it goes. But yeah, no, it's crazy. And you and I have, obviously we've talked on a couple different episodes where, just about how slow sort of DJ work got, and when the bars are closed and the clubs are closed, and, there's no place for DJs to work, and, the one last bastion for the great DJs is that they get to go and work, like nice weddings, good weddings. And when you don't have the weddings either, then my God, there's just like nothing you can do. I mean, short of being like a TikTok DJ, that's about all you got left.
Well, a lot of them are actually doing, I know there's a guy in Chicago named Boy Genius who does 2 Twitch streams every week. And he's actually been able to supplement his income, almost make more money doing Twitch streams than actually doing gigs.
Oh, wow.
Just people, will donate during the show and request songs and make a donation with it. And I never got on that bandwagon just because, because
you're an old guy like me.
No, I just don't think, like I like DJing and having the crowd in front of me really kind of makes my experience good. And I think having the Twitch thing, it's starting a new platform. It's building an audience on a platform I'm not on. And it just seemed like a lot of work. And for those guys that did it and are doing it still, props, because it takes a lot to put that together, and it's consistency, and it's something that I just didn't have the passion for. So if you did that and stuck with
Yeah,
it.
I mean, I think it'd be really challenging, right? I mean, it'd be like being a musician and playing in your house, but not to anybody, right? I mean, or in your case, I mean, a big part of what you enjoy about DJing, don't let me speak for you, but I mean, I've been to a number of your gigs, and a big part of where you start to, feel it and where you start kind of rocking out and getting into it is when you have a group of people dancing in front of you and everybody's having a blast and you can actually see the energy in the room moving around. And I mean, but that's kind of the whole thing, right? So, I mean, if you were just doing it in a sterile environment, you're sitting in your house, DJing to yourself, and, maybe you'll see a little text pop up every now and then. Hey, cool job. I like this song, or whatever. Like, I don't know. It is totally a different thing. So, I mean, maybe in terms of just being a performer, a totally different, or maybe a new art form altogether.
Well, actually, so I was talking with a DJ named Fraze, Fraze, and he was telling me that his Twitch stream has actually opened a lot of doors to him as far as networking with other DJs, because a lot of the guys will actually tune in and listen to his set and support. A lot of, like, the DJ community actually supports each other really well, and by doing his Twitch stream, he's kind of got relationships going with some of these DJs that he would have never actually gotten to know, or like they're in New York, he's in Seattle, or this and that. It kind of, it's a very interesting platform to do things on. There's another one, DJ Face. He's a previous guest of this show. He'll actually set up a webcam in the club now. He's back working at he's got 2 or 3 different venues, but one of them he'll actually set up and stream his set at the club on Twitch, and he has a guy that comes there with him, and he'll talk to the crowd or people watching on Twitch, and then he'll actually get on the mic and talk to his Twitch crowd while DJing at the venue, so people are like, what is going on right now? So it's kind of funny. I think it's technology is advancing, and you can either jump on the bandwagon or you can get left behind. And I think in this case, I'm going to get left behind.
So. Well, it's not too late. I've been thinking a little bit about Twitch specifically too, just because I've been trying to do more art centric type stuff, and I started working on some NFTs and I rolled a few out, and just trying to get into the mode where I was developing a persona as an artist, not unlike you as a performer, and become known for that. You've always been known as a performer, and, you're doing some other things these days, and, developing a new brand, I guess, so to speak, around those things. But for me, I've always been known as sort of the, art director, creative director, marketer, guy, ad guy. And, but what I'm trying to develop now is a little bit of an art career. And unfortunately, I've been too busy to really push it too far. But Twitch has emerged as a platform. I'm seeing a number of different artist groups and individual artists and stuff like that who just basically get on there and just draw. They just draw and let people sort of watch their process and learn how they do things. And I think it's a really interesting opportunity for, especially young artists and people who are just sort of interested in the process of art, because, we often see, and this is something, a critique that actually my 14-year-old gave me, but was that, people, the final piece is cool, whatever, so like my little NFTs are cool looking when they're done. They're a neat looking illustration. But at the end of the day, what's actually interesting about it, if you want to try and develop an audience, is people watching how you do it. They want to learn how the software works. They want to learn what your process is. Do you start with shapes, or do you just draw it straight out? Does it come from memory, or are you tracing? People want to know these things. And, you can actually, at least with drawing, and presumably, if you're running a DJ set, you could do the same thing. You can go kind of long form with people, and they might sort of, come in and drop off and things like that. But, they really want to see how it all works. And I wonder if you couldn't do something like that with the DJ realm too, or maybe it's not so much performing, but a teaching opportunity. Well, you teach people how to do things,
Yeah, a lot of guys are actually doing that. DJ Q is one that KUE. He's a kind of a house production guy, and he'll sit down and record his Ableton session as he's making a remix of a track. And DJ Face has done that as well. A bunch of guys are doing that. And to me, like, I'll tune in to like DJ Q and I'll sit down and watch how he's doing stuff, because there's a lot of techniques that, I haven't thought of, or, as you're doing a bunch of this stuff, you learn things throughout the process. So like you learn how to warp a track, or how to extract stems out of, like get the acapella and the instrumental, and use these different plugins for different things. And as a new person who hasn't had the experience to use Ableton or Pro Tools or the different software that you use for, even making this podcast, I could probably set up a Twitch stream and show me editing the video and audio for this podcast. Could be interesting. Do I want to do it? Not really. But as someone who, I find it interesting, so I tune in, but I've got so much on my plate right now. Starting a Twitch stream is probably the last thing I want to do.
Yeah, well, and I think you're right. I mean, I think that it would be interesting. And, you and I have talked a number of times about doing some kind of a podcasting course or something like that, because there are a lot of people, especially now, I mean, people are getting into podcasting, and there's a lot of people looking for good information on it, right? I mean, of course, there are paid courses, there are people who are doing it already, but everybody sort of has their own brand. And I think one thing that we have that's particularly unique is that, one of the hosts, does the editing and does all the work. I mean, you have the expertise as an audio engineer, so you're capable of coming in and actually doing the production yourself. And I think for a lot of like indie guys, people who are just trying to get into podcasting or any sort of online performance kind of thing, I think most of them start out doing their own editing, right? I mean, maybe the bigger shows are farming out editing to other people, but a lot of people could use those insights, on how they can self-produce their own materials. So yeah. I think it's something, definitely worthwhile. I mean, obviously, I'm aware you have a ton on your plate, so I'm not saying go do it today, but I definitely think it'd be a value. I mean, the stuff in your head is important and valuable, and I think people would love to see it.
Well, likewise. I mean, as you were saying, trying to develop yourself as an artist, I saw a couple of your NFTs that you put out. I mean, that vector work is incredible, and being able to do that kind of level of work, I'm sure there's a lot of up and coming people that would love to know that kind of stuff. And, the information's out there, but seeing someone actually do the work, I don't know, there's something different to it that, I can teach you how to use the pen tool in Illustrator, but seeing how to use it to accomplish an end goal, you get more out of that, I think.
Well, and what's particularly interesting about the NFT stuff is I think, just like, I mean, even though it seems like crypto is everywhere and this kind of thing is everywhere because it's all over the news, it's all over the internet. And maybe I see a lot of it because I happen to be sort of tuned into that stuff. But like the technology that crypto coins are built on and, and the NFTs are sort of served through, which is, they call it the blockchain. This blockchain technology is like game changer in a lot of respects. Like, I think that there are a lot of things yet to be discovered in terms of how people can apply this to everyday life and things. And I see blockchain technology as being one of those things that, like, for people of our generation, this is one of those things that we can grab onto early and sort of, ride the wave on, because I think, in the future, it'll be one of the ways that we do a lot of business and do a lot of work. And so I think even figuring out how to leverage like NFT and blockchain technology for, like DJing, for example, like if you used NFTs as a way of packaging up a set and selling your set or whatever, I mean, basically, I mean, I see it sort of as a, non-legally binding alternative to like, copyright or trademark registration, right?
Yeah, because, well, we had talked at one point about actually using it for your artwork, like releasing your logo package to a client, right.
Yeah, and I've still been trying to sort that out because I think there's something to it. Now, I don't know if there's really a value add there. Like, I don't know if clients care that much, but it's certainly something I've thought about. So, I mean, for people who maybe missed mine and Mike's conversation about this, the concept is that, by registering something on the blockchain, you're sort of creating a record that will last forever, that cannot be changed, sort of, indicating ownership of a thing. And you can transfer ownership or whatever, but this record will live forever, right? And so the idea is, especially, for people who don't know, I run a marketing agency and we do a lot of design work and logo work and that kind of stuff. I could do something where we create a logo, register it on the blockchain, and then have our client basically buy the NFT of their logo package, at which point they could be delivered, all the different file formats and all that stuff. But by doing that, we've registered this unique mark in a place, we've set a record. And, I mean, it's certainly not the standard. I mean, the standard would be taking it to like the Copyright Office or, patent and trademark or whatever and getting it registered. But, as a sort of initial first step to sort of put your flag in the sand, I think that, this model could be really valuable for that. And I think especially in the future, as trademark offices evolve and things like that, like using technology like blockchain would be a great way to house, sort of a non-fungible version of, the record associated with that thing. So I think there's a lot of applications for this technology that are yet undiscovered and everything. And so even though the NFTs and the crypto coins or whatever are sort of taking the stage, I think that there's a lot of other applications for it.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where it goes and what happens with it, for sure. How have things been, man? Like you've had a couple trips that you just took. You went to DC.
Yeah,
and then
God, it's been crazy time. And obviously with all the travel, I've managed to put on like 15 pounds in the last
right there with you.
So yeah, I'm dying. I have to get through summer because the boys go back to school, wife goes back to teaching and going back to school. And then I just get the house to myself again, and it gets quiet and I can start just getting back on routine. Right. So, but basically going back to the beginning of the summer, we bought a camper trailer. And I don't know if I've had an opportunity to complain about it on the show yet, but the trailer itself is beautiful. It's really nice. And my wife was basically the advocate for that thing. She had wanted a trailer, 14 years ago before our oldest son was born. And then we found out we were pregnant and we ended up not buying one, just for fear of, the financial implications of having a child. And so we backed off. We never did it. But my wife comes from a family of people who like to camp. They camp a lot. And for me, I'm not a huge fan, so I don't need it in my life, but she loves it. And so basically these last 14 years, we've had very little camping, maybe a trip here and there, but it was in a tent or it was staying in somebody else's camper or whatever. And this year my wife just threw her hands up in the air. We bought a pickup a year and a half ago and I knew it was only a matter of time. Yep. And she was
that was your fault. You could have got like a Honda or something.
I didn't want a truck. She told me a truck. And so, and I mean, I still don't want a truck, but now I have a truck. And so my wife was like, you know what, time, we're buying a camper. Come hell or high water, we're getting a camper. So we got a camper. And so we spent the early half of the summer doing a lot of camping. We didn't go too far, everything within maybe a couple hundred miles of Salt Lake. We didn't, I'm not a big fan of hauling those things like interstate or cross country.
How's that going, by the way? Are you getting down the backing up portion of it all right?
Oh yeah, dude, I got it figured out now. The trick for anybody who's looking out, I mean, you can find it on YouTube, so go ahead and go there, but I would like to think that we're a source of knowledge for a lot of people. So the trick is you just move your hand to the bottom of the wheel, and then right moves your trailer to the right, and left makes your trailer go to the left. If you do it on top, it's weird, and it's you have to do a little more brain math.
I never thought of it that way, but
but if you move your hand down to the bottom of it, like just you rotate your hand to the right, and the trailer will turn to the right. And so after I learned that trick, done, no problem.
Well, and you got lucky too, because you started with a big trailer. If you start with like a jet ski, where you can't see it's not sticking up above the top of the window or whatever, and your wheel, that's how I learned how to back up a trailer. And I tell you what, I learned the hard way.
Well, and I'll tell you what too. I mean, I hedged my bets. I mean, we bought a 3-camera set for the trailer. So there's a camera down either side and one off the back. And then my truck's got a backup camera. It's like a whole audio video presentation every time I back that trailer up.
That's awesome.
And so anyway, but that's what it took for me to get it in there. I told my wife I'd get it, but I didn't grow up with a dad or anything. Like pulling trailers is not something I did. I didn't grow up with somebody who did that, so it was like, totally foreign to me.
It's all right though. My dad can't back up a trailer to save his life. So there's that too.
Well, and you're one of these hot shots because you've done truck, you've driven truck, you've done all that stuff. So, I mean, you can probably whip these trailers around, no problem.
I love going to
I wouldn't have bothered learning.
When I go to a campground or whatever, for camping is like a family reunion or something like that, one of my favorite thing to do is sit back with a beer and just watch people try and pack their nice RVs in. It's just the funniest thing for me.
I've been impressed. Our last 2 trips, the first one was a little rocky, but the last 2 trips, we're in 5 minutes, like done.
Nice.
Yeah,
nice.
We're knocking it out. So anyways, we spent a lot of time camping this summer. So that was interesting. I always joke during the summer, my wife's a school teacher. So I always joke that, when we travel in the summer, she gets to go on vacation and I have to learn to work from increasingly challenging locations. So in the case of camping, every place we went, I had to figure out how to get Wi-Fi to the campsite, or the last place we stayed, we couldn't get Wi-Fi at the campsite. So I had to drive 4 miles down the canyon to get Wi-Fi, pull down all my email, cruise back up, and then work for 2 or 3 hours, then go back down, download, re-upload, download again, come back up, and I mean, so it's kind of a nightmare. It was pretty brutal actually, but
well, it's a good excuse to get away from the family for a few minutes.
Yeah, right. Give you a few minutes. So, but yeah, no. So, but in our first month of camping, so we have a cell phone, or all our cell phones are through Verizon, and on Verizon you get, I think it's 30 gigs of data as a hotspot that's unlimited or whatever. So you can download at any speed up to 30 gigs. Well, we burned through 4 phones. So we burned through mine, my wife's, my oldest son's, and then an extra, and then I ended up buying a mobile hotspot too. So I burned through 4 devices, and we didn't get all the way through the hotspot. But I mean, that's whatever 3 times 4 is. 120 gigs of data that I pulled down from campsites across Utah this summer. So it's been a while.
Side note, I have Verizon as well, and I have the unlimited data package and all that stuff. And
unlimited.
Yeah, right. So I go to a wedding, and I try to pair my phone to my laptop like I have done for years. And all of a sudden there's this, you have to call your Verizon representative to set this feature up. Like when I updated my software or whatever on my phone, now it's set up where I can't do mobile hotspot from my phone because I haven't set it up through Verizon yet. And the fact that Apple is making me set it up through Verizon pisses me off because
that's interesting. Cause I mean, I just manage it from my phone.
Luckily, I was able to, so I have this rack mount Bluetooth receiver in my DJ kit where I was able to get the song that I needed on Spotify and Bluetooth it through my PA. If I didn't have that, and you don't have the headphone jack on your phone anymore, I would have been screwed. And I wouldn't have been able, like, it was a last minute, hey, do you have this song? Bride's requesting it. I don't have it on my laptop. Try to download it and set up Wi-Fi on my computer. Couldn't do it. So luckily I had that Bluetooth receiver, or else I wouldn't be able to do it for them. And it's just little stuff like that where they put a clause in there where I have to call customer service to set up something that I've done in the past, that type of stuff. Well,
it even just happened to you and me earlier. An hour before we did this show, we had a podcast with another guy, and we were about 20 minutes late starting because I updated my Zoom software and it broke my driver for my camera.
Yeah.
And so even though an hour prior I had checked it and it worked just fine, whatever this update was broke the driver, and cost us 20 minutes. And luckily the guy we did the show with was very, was graceful about it and everything. But
so I most DJs have this, if it's not broke, don't fix it kind of thing. So a lot of guys will use, like, when Serato switched from Scratch Live to Serato DJ, a lot of guys were still using Scratch Live 2 or 3 years afterwards because your drivers if you have a 57 mixer instead of like a 62 or for the drivers don't work, so you have to have Scratch Live to use that mixer, and so you can't upgrade because of that. And B, lots of times if you upgrade, you run into like some crazy issues beforehand that like never upgrade before a gig. You always do it after the weekend, like on a Monday, so you have time to figure out all the weird stuff, because if you show up thinking stuff's just gonna work, it just doesn't. And
that was exactly my mistake today, right? I mean, I haven't cracked this laptop in 4 or 5 weeks because you and I have been a little bit on hiatus, and I had to open it. I don't know, when we did the Aubrey Terrasas show, I had to turn it on then. But I mean, it's been a few weeks, and so when I fired this computer up, I mean, it just everything needed updated, right? So I was just like, okay, update, and didn't even think anything of it, and then just killed everything.
So speaking of that, Aubrey Trace's show, I don't know, I'm slaughtering it, Terrasas. I apologize for ghosting you on that and leaving you hanging. For those of you who listened to it, I was not present, and that was 100% my sister's fault, and I'm going to blame her.
That's right. And I'm sticking to it. No, it ended up working out great. It was no big deal. And, but poor Mike was stuck with family in the house. I texted him and didn't hear from him. And then finally, it was like, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes into the show or something when I finally heard, and you're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And so anyway, so poor Mike couldn't make it, but we didn't know he couldn't make it until it was too late.
Yeah, and that was my bad. I should have texted you earlier
I mean, it worked out fine. The call was good, and we, luckily we'd already prepared for the show and everything, so it was all good. But it was kind of a funny moment. So the summer has been wild, and I mean, for people who stuck with us through last year and everything, I mean, you remember Mike spent a lot of time in like Nome, Alaska last year and stuff. I mean, like we've been through some crazy summers the last couple of summers.
Yeah, it's hard when stuff starts.
Hang on, everybody. My wife's busting in. Yes?
Ariel's here, and we're still waiting.
You're still on the phone for the doc?
We had to reschedule and get re-piped in. But he's in the shower. So
I guess okay. Leave me the doc, and if he comes on, we'll pause. So, this is called real-time parenting with Mike and Ryan right now. You're on the phone with the teledoc while you and I talk. I guess that's right in front of my camera, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I was just going to say that.
And so I'll set it here. The doctor will come on and he will go, what the? And then we'll figure it out. Okay, yeah, tell Ethan to hurry, because if the doc comes on in a minute, he'll need it. So anyway, there you go. Real life happening in real time. This is one of those, COVID moments, right? This is everybody started working at home thing. It's summer. We're all here now. And so, the boys, I've got my youngest son is off here to the side over here playing video games, and he was told strictly don't come out for the next couple hours. So I think he was cool with it.
Okay.
And then, my oldest son is playing football, and we think he may have like a minor concussion or something. So they got on teledoc, and the teledoc has been, super slow getting on the phone. So that was my wife who just came busting in.
I think this is her first appearance on the show.
Yeah, got it. Should have made her poke in here. She has fun purple and blue hair right now, so I should have made her do it. Should have matched the background.
There you go.
So anyway, but let's see, what were we even talking about? I can't remember.
Just crazy summer.
Yeah. So anyway, I'll sort of circle back around because I don't remember exactly where we left off. But anyway, so despite all the camping, we took a couple trips out to Bear Lake this year. For people who've listened in the past, we have a family cabin out there, so we went up there. It's about 2 hours away, so those were nice, like as always. But then I guess it's been about the last 4 weeks, and this coincided with Mike doing a bunch of weddings up in Washington. We were just like week after week after week. So we went up to Oregon the first week and went up to see my father up there. Second week, the next weekend, we were supposed to go out to the cabin again, and our plan fell through. And then I got booked to go to DC for a video shoot. So I went out to Washington, DC that weekend. And then this last weekend was me and my wife's anniversary. So we went to New Orleans for our anniversary. And so the last 3 weeks have just been bangers. Like we're just like not home. Yeah. So, I think me and my wife sat down and figured it out that we've been home maybe about 3 weeks all summer.
Wow.
It's just been brutal.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So talk a little bit about, you went the place, and we should share some pictures or something, but you should show or talk about this new wedding venue you're at. This, it's like a vineyard or something.
I've been there before. It's in Chelan as well, but it's one of those venues that, it's high dollar. It's a place called Siren Songs Vineyard in Chelan, and I went and did this wedding with Scott Foster. He was on the show a while ago. He was the live entertainment for the cocktail hour, and this is one of those weddings that we booked 2 years ago, and both of us were like, "Oh man, I wish they didn't pay us the full amount in advance." So he ended up flying in. I picked him up in Wenatchee. The wedding was great. We were featured on a lot of kind of wedding blogs in Seattle.
Oh, cool.
So I love it when that happens.
It's good for business.
Yeah, and actually this wedding, it's a different wedding planner than I normally work with too. And I'm really excited to, work with her. She's her company's called A Standard of Grace. If you're looking for a great wedding planner, she's great. One thing I like that she has her vendors do is on social media platforms is if you post something about the wedding, you share all the links and handles for all the other wedding people involved. So like if I posted a photo for the, like the dancing or the Scott playing the guitar or whatever, I would tag the photographer, I'd tag the florist, I'd tag the wedding planner. And it's really neat to see everyone kind of supporting each other and actually kind of, like if you're getting kudos for this, give the other vendors kudos, even down to the people who did the hair for the bride, they came in and,
Oh, wow.
I think it's really neat that they're doing that. And I wish
I think that's really cool, especially for things like that, because I think a lot of these people, they're probably small companies, right? It's like some guy does hair or some girl does hair, and then this other person does, flowers or whatever, but it's not probably, maybe in some cases, but it's probably not always giant conglomerates, right? It's a lot of times a local business or something like that. So that is
small
really
guys like me, and I appreciate the kudos, and I'm sure that everyone else does as well. And I think it's something I'm going to try and do more often.
Is that a new development, like post COVID? Like, had you seen that before, or is
that's a new development?
Thing?
That's a new development. Working with a different wedding planner. The wedding planner that I normally use that normally books me, her name is Lorraine Jenkins, and her company is called True Expressions, I think. Yeah. But she's based out of Chelan, and she's where I get most of my work from in the area, and she's been amazing. I can honestly tell you that if it wasn't for her, I would be broke right now. She's booked probably 80% of my weddings over the last 10 years. And so I truly appreciate her. And when I go to Chelan, I stay at her house with her family. And so it's almost like a second family for me.
Oh, that's cool.
Love that.
Yeah, no, I think that's pretty awesome. Well, and that's the thing, right? This sort of, I don't know, collaboration between groups, the fact that she's not only booking you, but kind of hooking you up that way. Like, I think what I like about it, or what I think is so interesting about it, is that it's a kind of a, it's a reciprocal thing, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody's kind of looking out for one another. It's got that kind of small town vibe, and Chelan is, I guess, kind of a smallish town, but it's a really cool place. Like, the places that you're working out of are these really cool vineyards and stuff. Like, it's pretty awesome stuff.
Well, so what is it? Is it Napa Valley in California? That's the wine country. This is the wine country for Seattle. So it's a destination wedding for instead of, doing it in Seattle and paying for these expensive venues in Seattle, they pay for the expensive venue in Chelan and make a trip out of it. Yeah. And so most of the vendors are coming over from, like the photographer at this last wedding is actually coming on our podcast, by the way. She's a destination photographer, and so that she'll fly to Mexico, she'll fly to, Tahoe, to Chelan.
Rough gig.
It's horrible, I know. And so I asked her if she wanted to come on the show, so she's going to come on the show. And
oh, that's awesome. Yeah, it'd be cool to just kind of hear about that, because what a cool thing to set up. I look at people like that who have figured out how to sort of do the thing they're passionate about, but also have this opportunity to see such amazing things, and do such cool stuff. I was just talking earlier to my brother-in-law. He came down for an overnight. He had an appointment here in Salt Lake, but he's an amazing chef, a phenomenal chef. He, when he was a young man, he spent a lot of years working in 5-star and Michelin rated restaurants. And so he's really, quite the cook himself. He was just telling me that his stepsister is doing a wedding where she runs a catering organization, and they're doing, I think I might screw this up, but the CEO or the vice president or something of Lululemon's wedding. Mm-hmm. And I guess they're catering 2 of the 7 parties that are being thrown. And so he's going to go out. It's up in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. And so, nice. So he's going to go up to Jackson and work in the kitchen for a couple of days, even though he's a public defender by trade, but he's going to go work in the kitchen a couple of days just to go be around all this stuff. Right.
Well, because, I'm sure he loves
the rich and famous.
I'm sure he loves doing cooking to begin with. If he was a chef, he probably enjoys it, and it's probably fun for him to get back in the kitchen. Speaking of celebrity kind of events, Scott Foster, who's been on the show 2 times, the last wedding he had done before he came and did this wedding with me at Siren Songs was for Betsy DeVos,
Oh, wow.
Her daughter was getting married, and so like talk about buco bucks.
Yeah, no
He
joke,
was,
right?
well, evidently the planning company was, everyone was flown in for that, and so like just the planning people, there was probably 10, 15 people that showed up just for that one wedding. And then he quoted them initially before knowing who they were, or else he said, I would have probably tripled my rate if I knew that. Hindsight 2020 kind of thing. But
Yeah,
and
but see,
yeah,
he's got to be getting you those kind of deals, man. You got to be doing those weddings.
well, see, the problem with me is, for me to do a wedding, I have to have all the equipment. And so arranging all the equipment
Yeah,
is,
but if you're doing a $12 million wedding, you could probably source it out.
oh
Probably.
yeah, no, and those are the, I mean, like, I drive from Idaho to Chelan to do these weddings. Obviously there's money in it, or else I wouldn't be doing that.
Mhm.
And so like for Scott, he can jump on a plane with his guitar and tie into a PA and be good. Whereas with me, I have to bring turntables, I have to bring a
Everything.
mixer, I have to bring speakers and this and that. So I always tell everyone, like, I got in the wrong business. I should have been a videographer or a photographer, because I could do these destination weddings a
Throw it
lot
on your
easier.
back and go.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's probably right. Yeah, you chose the most labor intensive gig.
Well,
So-
speaking of that, I also got into landscaping because I'm an idiot.
Oh, yeah, no, we should talk about that a little bit. I think the last time we did one of these shows that was just sort of you and me talking, I think, well, if I remember right, and I may have this screwed up a little bit, but I think maybe 2 times ago, we were just like going through, you were getting documents filed, you had just gotten your license back, some of that kind of stuff. I think the last time we talked, you had a couple gigs and you were working, and you were actually putting in some stuff for clients. And so, yeah, it's been a minute since we updated. So what's new? How'd the summer go?
Oh goodness, man. Like, this summer has been the craziest that I've ever had. And it's not the profitable list. Like, that first gig that I did, I way massively underbid it. And I think I worked a month, maybe just shy of a month, for $800. It's probably what I walked away with. And a lot of that was not realizing that there's a lot of, like, you put a sprinkler system in, now you got to make sure it's got the coverage right. And now you got to make sure you got the water pressure correct on all the zones. And one of the zones, like, I had to dig up like 80 feet of pipe and add a 5th zone to the thing, just because when I calculated it, I didn't calculate it quite right. And so I wasn't getting the pressure that I needed. And then I had to go buy more parts. And then the scope creep was there. Like I was telling you initially, that we did hydro seeding on half the lawn, and the other half we did sod. And so there was a portion of the area that's not a lawn, but we hydro seeded it with just regular, like what you would see on the side of the road grass, just kind of like wild grass kind of stuff.
Grasses and stuff.
And since we hydro seeded it, he was like, hey, we didn't have a sprinkler system designed up there, but we need water up there, and I don't want to do this. And so I ended up putting another zone on the sprinkler system and running a temporary area up there. But then that's parts that I had to buy to do that. And then it's just like a lot of learning in that first one.
Well, and I imagine that's the case for everybody, right? I mean, I know that was true, for me working in the, design business, when you start selling something, at least in your case, you've got something physical you're selling, right? Stuff have a price, and you have to sort of, figure out what your labor costs are or whatever. But but ultimately, a sprinkler head costs what a sprinkler head costs, that kind of stuff. When you're working in like intangibles, and this is the problem I'm sure you ran into as a young DJ, and, that I ran into as a young designer, is that there's no thing, right? So you have to figure out what this like intangible, design file that I'm going to send over or whatever is worth. And I'm sure it's, very similar in landscaping. I imagine there's a bit of growth curve.
Yeah. Well, you're not necessarily selling the product itself. You're selling your time and your value of what you value your time as. And so it's kind of, and trying to explain that to a client and get them to realize that, you're not paying for the logo, you're paying for the 20 years of my time to know how to make that logo in the first place. And why is it so expensive? Is because it took me 20 years to learn how to do that.
Well, yeah, who did I hear from? Somebody not too long ago. They were saying they run a sprinkler business in Pocatello, I think, Pocatello, Idaho, and they were saying that they're charging, I want to say like $175 a head is what they charge to put in a system.
I haven't seen it bid like that, but that makes sense.
Yeah, and so, and I guess, I mean, I presume that factors in, you know, the pipe to and from each head or something. I'm not sure how it all breaks down, but I was just blown away because I was like, I mean, just looking at my own yard, I mean, we don't have a massive yard, but it's pretty decent size. You know, I don't know, there's 6 or 7 heads, maybe 8 on each zone, and there's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 zones. So 64 heads at $170 a piece. You know, it's like, well, crap adds up.
When I bid this project, like I said, I massively underdid it. And once you do a sprinkler system, you have to get a test done on the backflow to make sure that it's not putting water back into the water system for the city, because you don't want, you know, any contaminants or fertilizer getting into the drinking water. And so I had the test done, and this guy's been in the sprinklers industry for 10, 15 years. And I told him what I quoted him, and he's like, yeah, I would have done about $4,000 more than what you quoted for everything that you did. And, you know, it's a learning curve, and I, you know, wanted the job, and I wanted to, you know,
well, that's a big part of it too, right? There is what you said, this idea that you wanted the job, right? Because especially when you're just trying to get the business going, there's this, it's not desperation, but it's like this anxiety about getting your first contract, right? You need to get out there so you can get established.
Yeah.
And so sometimes, you know, I think I for sure did this, you know, was notorious for doing work for less than what it was worth, because it was just like, I want the job, so I'll go low so that they'll buy. Right. So that you can basically convince them to buy.
Well, and it wasn't necessarily me trying to, I wasn't desperate for the job, you know, like, yeah, it would have been great to, you know, I needed money because COVID and DJing was gone. And, you know, that's the whole reason I pivoted into landscaping to begin with. But it was lack of knowledge. It was lack of not knowing how to bid correctly. And, you know, there's so many moving parts that it was really a guessing game on my end on how to bid it, because, you know, I had to call and figure out, you know, how many yards of soil I needed and what it would cost for that, and then delivery and this and that. And it's like a wear and tear on my truck, like towing the equipment to the job site wore out all my brakes. So now I have to replace the entire brakes, all the pads, the rotors, and everything on my truck, because that heavy equipment ruined that. And so that's an expense I didn't take into consideration, which is $300-400, which is now coming out of my profit, which is cutting.
And it's only $300 or $400 because you can do it yourself. I mean, for the average person that you have, you know, who has to just take their car to the brake shop or whatever,
grand. All my profit would have been gone if I had to pay someone else to do that. And I mean, I had to, there's just so many moving parts in landscaping that, you know, like,
well, it's so funny to hear you say all that, because I mean, like, you know, when I think of landscaping or whatever, I think you just naturally simplify it, right? Oh yeah, just go dig a hole and put some grass in it, or oh, just go add another head. It's not you know, like, it doesn't seem like a big deal.
That's you as a consumer,
right?
Simplifying it. And me as the person doing the work knows everything. Well, now I know, because I've done a few projects now, a few jobs, but you know, like, I just did a flagstone patio for a client. That I just finished the first path. I have more to do, but she wanted me to come in and work hourly. And, you know, if I tell her I'm $20 an hour, you know, then I'm cutting money off of my end, because, you know, I need to make X amount of dollars per project to make it worth my time. And I ended up bidding her, you know, more than $20 an hour, but I sold it as a package of, this is how much it's going to cost, knowing that it would take me less time to actually do it, but knowing what I value my time as, because she wouldn't value my time the same way. Right. So it's, I don't know.
Yeah, to be honest, struggle, because, like, I mean, you can, like, hourly could get out of hand pretty fast. Like, sometimes I think people think they're getting a deal because it's like, okay, well, I'll only pay you for exactly the amount of time you use. When in reality, like, if you just bid a flat rate and it goes long, like, you're the one losing money. You know, so, I mean, they just have a flat rate. So in some cases, it's safer even for them to choose the flat rate instead of the hourly, because, like, you know, if you're, you know, just for simple math, I mean, if you're $40 an hour and you bring an assistant and he's $40 an hour, so they're paying $80 an hour, like, that could spin out and be pretty expensive pretty quickly with this kind of work.
Yeah. Well, and like, for me, like, if I were to come in and quote her $40 an hour, she'd say no. but I know that's what I want to make on this job. So I give her a flat rate and estimate my hours in advance, because I've done, I did this big flagstone patio at my house. I know how long it will actually take. And another thing that is in that equation too is I don't want to come in and spend 3 days straight working on her project. I want to do it here and there and fit it in when I can, because I'm so busy. I don't want to necessarily say I'm going to come in and do it this week and be done and then do a flat hourly rate. I can say, hey, it's going to cost you this much, but I'm going to come in and take my time on it and do it right. And it's, I don't know. I'm a perfectionist to begin with. So I would rather do the job right than do a rush job to just, get it out of the way and done an hourly and keep her happy. I just quote her what it's worth to me. I come in and do the job an hour here and there, and then after a few weeks, it's done. So it's, I don't know. It's just the thought process that goes through my head. But
yeah, no, it's challenging. And I mean, starting any new business is a challenge, but especially one where you don't really have, like, you had the physical experience, you had done this kind of work before, but you hadn't done it in the sense that you didn't own a business doing this kind of work.
Well, I've never billed anyone for it. I've never, like, all the jobs that I've done have been, my house, a house that we're buying and flipping or something like that, it's like, you need the work. So I just do it myself instead of paying someone else to do it. Yeah. And, it's like, it's learning curve, learning how to do an estimate and learning how to, make money at it. And to be honest with you, the last week I have hardly been able to even walk. My back is killing me to the point where, I had to do that flagstone job so I could pay to go do this wedding that I've already been paid in advance for. And so it's like, I'm sitting here crawling, trying to finish flagstone just so I could have the gas money to go and do this gig. It's coming down to that. And I'm legit 100% honesty here. I'm probably going to go and drive truck again just to get health benefits.
Get some steady benefits and steady cash and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. It sucks that I can't rely on the DJ income because, I love
well, and even
it.
now, as you hear the news and people are starting to stress out again about this new Delta variant or whatever. And, what is that going to mean? Are we going to start shutting down again? I mean, it's just, there's still so much uncertainty that it seems like, to try and rely on public performance for a living would still be, kind of challenging or a little bit scary anyway right now.
Well, and I don't know. I like the thought of doing landscaping because I love being able to sit back and say, hey, this is the direct result of my labor for the last month. Is you have this physical project. Like, I drive by that house every day. It's on the way up to where I live. And now it's like, kind of like I have a good and bad taste in my mouth because yes, it looks awesome. And yes, it turned out great. And yes, it was a pain in the ass. And yes, dealing with the client to make him happy was a pain in the ass. And yes, there was a lot of this and that. So it's like this catch-22 where I'm like, yes, I did that. It's awesome. But yes, I lost my ass on it. And now it's kind of like a bad taste in my mouth. But at the same time,
there's like a legacy thing, right? You get to see this thing that you did and it will outlive you. And it's great. I mean, it's cool. But yeah, I mean, all that backstory attached to it could be problematic.
Yeah. And it's, if I was making it, and it can, like, if I would really just hire people and bid appropriately and not do all the labor myself, it could be a very profitable business and there is money in it. It's just a matter of bidding it right and having other people do the work so I'm not killing myself. But the biggest thing for me right now is my back hurts. I don't have any benefits where I could go and
right.
I'd like even going and
kind of gambling on that.
Yeah, getting physical therapy, I have to pay out of cash, and like getting, like, if I keep killing myself on projects like that, I'm just gonna, put myself in an early grave, and
or at least in a swanky wheelchair or something.
Yeah, and so, I would like to keep my contractor's license and still do side projects and do this and that, but to be honest with you, my insurance tripled. So not only did I, by starting a business, my vehicle insurance is under the business now. So instead of paying, $100 a month to Geico, I'm paying $400-500 a month for the business insurance, for the car insurance, for everything that I need to just be legal. And
Right.
so I
Yeah.
don't know.
Well, I mean, it seems like that there's maybe then, that the bigger challenge is just finding new work that you can actually bid out at a high enough dollar amount that you can, you can be directing the work, but not doing it.
To be honest with you, like, when I'm doing the work here at the house, I enjoy it because it's my meditation. I go out and I work, and it's my, kind of like I get out and I enjoy it. When I was doing the work for them, it was like, this has to be done, and it has to be done to their specifications, and it has to be done, like it changes things, and I don't necessarily enjoy it as much.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, it becomes a job, right? It's not a hobby anymore. It's not a thing you can do to just kind of pass the time. It's something that you have to do to, to make a living or to hit a deadline or whatever,
Yeah. And I
understand that. I mean, even though you're doing landscaping, I mean, it's not that unlike what I do, I mean, it's the same kind of, I think anytime you're in a service industry, I mean, it's a little more challenging because for you have to deal with, physical stuff. You have to do with, equipment and, physical labor, like you're talking about. I could probably stand to do a little more physical labor based on the belly I'm developing.
Well, I like doing that job. Starting off, I lost almost 20 pounds in the first 3 weeks that I was doing landscaping, just because of the physical exertion that I had to do to get it done. But I mean, I think if I would specialize, like if I wasn't a general landscaper, like I'll do your sod, I'll bring the topsoil in, I'll pick all the rocks out of your yard, and I'll do, like that project. That's what that was it was like starting from nothing to rock walls in, the lawns in, the sprinkler systems in, the everything.
Well, I wonder if that isn't an idea then, if maybe you do hyper focus on one thing.
Well, if I were to hyper focus on sprinkler systems, it would be a lot easier, less work, and I'd be able to do more jobs and focus on just that. Me right now, this is going to sound stupid, but having put a sprinkler system in and doing his yard, I realized how much water it takes to maintain a lawn of that size, and with a drought going on and with everything, I feel guilty for my yard. Like just watering every day. I feel bad that I'm wasting that much water on grass. And so I'm getting this kind of like,
well, then maybe it's time for innovation. Maybe we need to invent something right here on this show that is a low water usage kind of water.
Well, I've actually thought of a recycling system for your lawn where you
that's awesome. Well, I was going to say, what about using like drip lines or something, but submerging drip lines an inch or two below the surface and just running drip lines. And so you run way less material, but you keep your lawn moist always.
So that's actually how they do it in the vineyards. When they do, so probably 70% of the water that you spray on top of your lawn actually evaporates. So for it to actually get down to the roots, it's like 30, maybe 40% of the water you're actually using gets down there and feeds the grass. And so what they do in the vineyards is they do drip lines and they direct it directly to the roots. So they're using less water and they're getting what they need. Yeah. And
I'm wondering if like grasses, if the roots of grass are approximately 2 or 3 inches underground, if you couldn't, especially on a new lawn, come up with a system for just burying a drip line, basically, and just, running several of them.
I'm sure there
might be dozens or something, but they're close enough together that you could water a lawn or just keep it sort of perpetually wet.
So the process is with the drip line, I don't think it would spread far enough out to get the
like
entire
you'd have
lawn.
To put 1,000 of them.
Yeah. My idea, what I was thinking about doing was doing like kind of like putting a pond liner down, and then putting like gravel on top, and then putting soil on top of that, and then put in your lawn. And so like your water would water the grass, the gravel would filtrate the dirt and mud out of it, allow it to hit the drip line, and then have a catch basin where you essentially recycle it. I don't know if that's been done or if it's even possible, or if I'm just, it's a pipe dream kind of thing, but that was a thought.
Well, that sounds to me like we need to get some kind of scientist on this show that can help us solve this problem.
I actually thought of that. I looked on LinkedIn trying to find like an irrigation specialist or something to see if, because like with Andrew and hydrogen, it was something I'm interested in. So I get a guess that, I'm interested in that.
Well, it makes me wonder, right? I mean, are there alternatives? Like sprinkler systems are the easy one, and you mentioned the drought. I mean, they just rolled out news here that we're only allowed to sprinkle 2 days a week and some other stuff like that. But what if, for example, you could pull a mesh over your yard, that was sort of like a sun shield kind of mesh.
They do that in Chelan for the apple trees and stuff like that.
Okay, so what I'm learning, Mike, is that you and me need to start a vineyard, because apparently I know how to water a vineyard.
Right.
But maybe there's something like that, that you could put in something that rolls it up along your fence line, and you just pull it out, or it automates out or something. It's got a little robot that pulls it out or something and then pushes it back. Yeah. But it seems like there could be an opportunity for some innovation, maybe even in the hydrogen realm, right? I mean, is there a way to chemically create a fog that lays over the grass and moisturizes it instead?
I don't know. I just know right now the way that it's done, I feel guilty, and I don't like that feeling, and I don't like working towards creating more. Like I have a lawn job, a 4,000 square foot lawn I got to do in September. And it's like, I'm thinking of all the water that one lawn's going to take, and the water that my lawn's taking, and the water of the lawn that I just did. And I feel guilty, and I don't like working towards something that's contrary to what I stand for. And that's something that if I were to specialize in something, I would specialize in rock walls or flagstone or something that's not going to take a resource like water and get rid of it. I don't know.
Well, what we've got to do, and it'll kill the lawn mowing industry and everything else, but you got to get people on board with AstroTurf, I think.
It like in Phoenix and Vegas.
That's what I'm thinking, is like Arizona, right? These places where they have no water, you could do such cool stuff with like a little AstroTurf and a little like gravel and rock.
Yeah.
Like you could build really cool lawns that are low maintenance, and AstroTurf has gotten really cool, like really good.
So like the flagstone patio that I just did, I also did her sprinkler system, and I did a gravel, half her yard's gravel. I brought in all the gravel, and I put all the weed barrier down, and I did that. And the little portion of her yard that is lawn, we actually did a hybrid of lawn and clover. And clover requires less water, and it attracts bees like it. So it's a good resource for the bees, which are, that's another thing that they're going away. And it's like, I don't know.
But what you're describing though, if you can put together 2 or 3 of these things that make your offering unique, make it, hyper niche. So you're just doing lawns, specialty lawns, but you do a lawn that requires less, water. It makes good environment for bees and things like that, so it's getting pollinated, it's going to grow well, and all this kind of stuff, and it'll work in your area. Then you become the eco lawn guy, and you save people so much money on water that whatever they pay you doesn't even matter. Like, yeah, of course, I'll pay you 20 grand to put in this lawn because I'm never paying another water bill, And so, maybe there's something where you can tie your passion or your interests in preserving, natural resources, or, contributing to bee populations, or whatever it is that you want to sort of champion, and, turn that into your benefit. This is the thing that happens when you buy a lawn from us. Know that your lawn requires 80% less water. So if you water now for 20 minutes a station, well, now you only need to do it for 2 minutes a station. And you're going to get the same growth and the same whatever, right?
Yeah.
So, it seems like it's doable. It's just a matter of finding, putting together the package that is this stuff. But it seems like you could do it.
Well, so this is going down tangents.
Then franchise it, by the way.
What I actually envision as a kind of like a retirement, kind of like get on my own property and never come off kind of thing is I want to make knives just because I think it's cool. And so that's something I want to do. But B is I think that I want to get into mushroom farming, and because it requires less water, and you got the hydroponics. I was mushrooms one, and then like the lettuce and all these stuff that
Dude, if you could get going on those criminelli or whatever they are, the ones that look like little brains.
Oh yeah.
If you can figure those things out. I mean, maybe you're talking psychedelic, but I mean, if you're not talking psychedelic mushrooms, those criminellis, I mean, I guess part of their deal is they only grow where it burns.
Yeah.
So if you could figure out a way to sort of manufacture that, where you could burn, it's scorched earth on your plant, on your farm every year. And then, all the creminellis, or I'm probably screwing up the name. It's not creminelli. That's like a meat brand. But anyway, it's something. It sounds like that.
Well, so
But,
here's the
they
deal,
find
right?
them up in northern Idaho and stuff. They're pretty cool.
So I have a friend they're not a friend, they're an acquaintance. Lacey and James, we've talked about having them on the show at one point. They owned a restaurant called Juicy Dog. Now they sold their restaurant and they sold their house. They live in Mexico and they do food tourism. If you want to look them up, they're called their Instagram handle is The Way Out Adventure. And they're who I went down to Cabo with. So if you're ever looking for a trip to Cabo and get legit good food, they're the ones to hit up. But they have friends in Anacortes where they sell pre-made logs that they'll ship to you, and you can grow your own mushrooms at your house. And so everything's done, and they're doing really, really well with it. And next time I'm in Anacortes, I'm going to reach out to them and see if maybe we can have them on the show and talk about their business. But for me, the reason it's intriguing to me is mushrooms is a good source for not only like in India, most of their protein in it and food comes from mushrooms because it's easy to grow. You can use the roots as a kind of like a meat substitute. So you can get it's a vegan alternative for meat because it has the same kind of texture and the same kind of feel as meat. It's also a plastic replacement. So like your plastic packaging for say you buy a laptop, it comes in this kind of styrofoam kind of to hold it from being moved and stuff like that. They actually create forms where they grow the mushroom roots in this form, and then they bake it and it stops the growth and it creates like this mold of what you need. And so it's an eco alternative for plastic. So it's a really cool process.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's really neat. I'll send you a video to it. We can post it in the show notes for this.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I think that'd be really cool. I mean, all that stuff sounds awesome to me, actually. And I mean, me and my wife's side, because we drink so much coffee, we always thought it'd be fun to have a little coffee farm somewhere. Go down to the Caribbean or something and buy a little plot of land and, build a farm and just do, coffee beans and then bring them here to the States or whatever.
Well, there's just so many benefits to mushrooms in general. There is just a great product, and it's not necessarily easy to do. It would be a lot of learning on my end, but that's kind of where I see myself in maybe 10 years.
I was gonna say either do that, or if you can figure out how to grow truffles, because truffles are crazy too. And I mean, if you could figure out how to actually get our climate to grow a truffle, you can be a gazillionaire, I think. Well,
so here's my thought process right now as we sit, and I'm sorry for going on this tangent on the podcast, but
no, I think it's interesting. I love it. Well, and this is evidence that Mike and I haven't got to sit down and talk for a minute. So no, I think it's fun.
I honestly think I'm going to go and drive truck for the next 3 or 4 years because A, I'll get health benefits. B, I'll get some sort of 401k going. C, I'll get some stable income going. And I can put that, if I'm driving long haul, right? You're on the road most of the time. You're living out of the truck anyway. I'm used to that. I've done it for, like when I'm on the road DJing, I'm gone all the time and I'm living in my truck, watching my gear. So might as well get a legit job doing it. There's companies out there where I can bring my dogs and they can kick it in the truck with me. And I'm just going to bankroll all the money and truck. Like if you're on the road a lot, you can make upwards of 80 to 100 grand a year. And if I can bankroll, 70 of that and just put it in savings and start saving up and pay cash for 3-4 acres of land in Minnesota or wherever the fuck is cheap.
Where you got to go for shroom farming.
Well, I don't know. I want something paid off where I don't have a mortgage and I'm just paying, for necessities. And that's the thought is I'm just going to bankroll some money and, maybe DJ a gig here and there, but only take weddings that pay enough to make it worthwhile.
Right. We'll just take your gear on the road and do a Twitch stream of DJing from the back of the truck.
No.
And then you got a whole thing going on.
I don't know. COVID has been so weird on me, not having work and trying to get this landscaping thing going and realizing that my back's not cut out for it. And I just need to just take something stable and go from there. So I don't know.
Well, no, I mean, it sounds interesting, and it's cool that there's sort of a journey in mind, you know, this idea, because I mean, I think the idea of sort of, you know, getting a hunk of land and, you know, growing something. And like, I mean, I think that's all very cool. I mean, maybe it's, you know, kind of romantic or whatever, but I think it's a cool idea. And no, I think it'd be really cool, actually. Well,
there's this guy right now that, you know, I've been doing research trying to figure out like the best processes and the things to do. And there's this guy right now that does this, what's it called? Hydroponics, but he has it set up in layers where the water source is a fish tank.
Oh, wow.
And he grows tilapia, which is a protein, which is, you know,
delicious.
And delicious. And the tilapia, he feeds them, and their byproduct, the poop and whatever comes out into the water, actually fertilizes the plants down the stream. And he pumps it in a cycle, so the plants are getting the nutrients that they need from the fish, and then the water comes back in, and it just creates the process. So you're recycling the water and
totally self-sustaining.
Yeah. And
you lose a little bit of water to evaporation, but outside of that, you're pretty sustainable.
I just, you know, with the current state of things and the way everything's going right now, I just want to do something that's A, not harmful for the environment, and B, is giving back, you know, and
well, and honestly, I don't think it's a bad idea. I mean, just given the fact that, I mean, you know, we probably have to resign ourselves to the fact that there will be a COVID, you know, whether it's this one or COVID 20 or 21 or, you know, whatever we've got. I mean, you know, there's going to be stuff down the road, you know, whether we're just living with the future, you know, with COVID as we know it today, or, you know, whatever is coming down the road. And so I think people who invest in that kind of stuff, you know, sustainable things that are self-sufficient, you know, that kind of stuff, those will be the champions, or those will be the hero, you know, the next time this happens and the economy shuts down. Whatever, man, I'm just growing my mushrooms out here. We're totally sustainable. We're, you know, solar, we're off the grid, you know, and I think that, you know, I think there's some real merit to that kind of stuff.
I'm looking for the simple lifestyle. I'm looking for the, you know, sustain myself, maybe give as much back to the community as I can, as far as like if I'm producing, you know, a farm or this or that, you know. And I just,
yeah, you ought to check out. I don't know. I imagine it's expensive to live here, so it's probably not perfect. But I think I told you we'd gone camping just outside of a town called Eden here in Utah. It's on the backside of the mountain, and from where I live anyway. It's only about 30 minutes away though. And but back up in there, I mean, not only you mentioned wanting to maybe make knives or do something like that, there's a little forge up in there, and it's just a little brick shop, you know, and it's the whatever forge, I can't remember what it's called, but you know, but that's all he's doing. But it's a community of, I don't know, 100 people, you know. I mean, it's like just this little place. It's got a couple cafes and things for people passing through and tourists coming out to the reservoir and stuff like that. But it's quaint, it's small, it's easygoing. All the people know each other. It's kind of a cool vibe. It really is.
Well, right now I'm looking at, if you go to like the Canadian border of Washington on the eastern side, there's Vantage and Chelan, and just north about an hour and a half. Property is rather affordable. It's not blown out of proportion because it's far away from Seattle, and I'd be close enough to still do the Chelan weddings, and that's kind of where I'm looking. If not there, I'm seriously looking at northern Michigan, because you can buy 100 acres for next to nothing. And
as long as you're a Wolverines fan, then it's all good.
Yeah.
Don't go out there and be a Spartans fan, or we're not talking anymore.
Right.
So
anyways, enough ranting about my.
No, it's good. I mean, it's fun to kind of talk about this, because I think, you know, I mean, COVID has been weird for a lot of people, you know, myself included. I mean, like I went back to school to consider changing careers, and I've been a graphic designer, artist, marketing guy for 20 years, 30 years.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about switching it up, and I mean, like it would have never come into my head before COVID, but I had a lot of time just by myself, working in my office, all by myself alone, and all that time to just kind of be up in my head was like, well, shoot, maybe this isn't what I want to do. Maybe it's time for a pivot, so in my situation, I was, 157 credits into a degree that I'd never finished. And so I decided to just wrap it up and then I could maybe take a master's and actually change directions altogether. Going to a whole different career path, sort of kind of what you're talking about. I mean, you've been a DJ for 25 years or 20 years, and here you are talking about mushroom farming, but that's what I think COVID did for, and I don't know. I mean, you could look at it as a negative, but I think, for a lot of people, it's positive. I mean, they had time to sit and sort of assess what matters to them and what they care about. I mean, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, DJ Mike is not thinking about water conservation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But ultimately, are you a better person for thinking about water conservation? I mean, yes, of course. I mean, obviously we should all be doing our part and we should all be doing what we can to be sustainable and all that stuff. So, I mean, ultimately it's a positive in the sense that, it's making you a better person. It's helped you put together a plan for what you think you want to do to try and, get some money saved and get some stuff set aside so that you can just go do this thing. And, so I don't know. So, I mean, some people can look at it as negative, but I think it really is probably a positive. It's just, I think it's change and it's different for people, but I think it gave people this opportunity to kind of reassess what's important.
Yeah. I don't know. It always seems like in DJing, I'm always working for that next piece of gear, trying to build the business that much bigger, trying to, get the light show pack. Like,
well, I was going to say, I know you, dude. You're going to be on the farm and it's going to be okay. I got to get the bigger tractor. I got to get the new one with the rims, with the spinners, whatever. I mean, it'll be the same thing. It'll just be farm gear.
No, well, yeah.
I'm the latest Thrasher. This new Thrasher is going to knock down that field in half the time.
It's just so weird to have all this gear and have all this money tied up in gear and it's just sitting in a trailer for a year and a half and not making any money. And I never thought in a million years that the economy would just shut down to where it's just sitting where I can't use the gear that I invested in. And now it's like, it's just money tied up in a speaker that I can't use. And now it's finally coming back. And now we're dealing with the Delta variant. And it's like, is it going to shut down again? Is it all the venues in Seattle right now are requiring a proof of vaccine. And it's like, it's this weird kind of, what the fuck is going on and what can I rely on? And
right. Yeah, no, I get it. So, but I think it's actually cool. I think that's kind of an inspirational thing to lean on, or to sort of end this conversation with, because I think, in your mind maybe, or at least, sort of the way that I'm reading your face and stuff like that, you're sort of looking at this as like defeat or something. But I mean, in my mind, you've discovered what's important to you. This is maybe the first time you and I have ever had a water conservation talk. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, it's, you've discovered things that are of value to you and it took COVID to find them.
Yeah.
And now you're even, I mean, all the way down to feeling guilty about putting in a sprinkler system. You know what I mean? Like that's a changed mic. That's a different mic. And I think that's a positive. I think it's great.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I'll have plenty of time to think about it when I'm driving a semi to Ohio in the middle of the winter. But
ice road trucking, baby. Make a TV show out of it.
Right. Anyways, sorry to go off on a tangent. I know it's not normal for us. And
I mean, in my mind, for what it's worth, I think it's totally cool that you did that. I think that I think a lot of people are living there right now, trying to figure out what's next and where they're headed and all that kind of stuff. I think people are all living through, the fear or the anxiety or the, the array of emotions that have come up with COVID and stuff. So I think you putting yourself out there like that is pretty commendable, actually.
Well, it's like, we've got this, next week, we're going to have a financial planner on the show for those of you who will be around next week. And it's so weird to, have these conversations with these guys that have all this money and do the right things finance wise. And then meanwhile, I'm, trying to figure out how to make the next car payment. And so it's like, I try to keep it real because I don't want to, lie and pretend like I'm this and that when really I'm just probably like 99% of the rest of the Americans right now with no money in the bank and
well, and
figure out what
we've
to do
seen
next.
this with other guests too, where they come on and there's sort of a vibe, you know, that they put off like they've got it all figured out. And I think it's really common for people who try and guest on shows like ours and stuff to come there, you know, maybe they're supposed to be the authority on something or whatever, right? So they come out with sort of that attitude or that take on things. And but I think there's, you know, there's chinks in everyone's armor. You know, everybody's having, you know, problems and struggles. And I think that, you know, yeah, this is a good platform for sharing that stuff. And I mean, if you can't be honest with our audience and, you know, with us, then, you know, who can you be honest with, you know? And I think it's important to be vulnerable like that and sort of show what you're thinking, because there's a lot of people changing careers. There's a lot of people changing, you know, their whole lifestyle, everything after everything everyone's been through. And so I think it's an important message. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't feel bad about it at all.
If you're watching the video and notice that all my records are gone, I had to sell them. Yeah, it's rough.
Yeah,
No, that's a lie. I put them in storage. I live in an area that's kind of a fire hazard, and so I'm really worried that it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when our house will burn down. So during the summer I put them in storage just to, you know, get that worry off of my plate, because if I lost my record collection, I'd be in.
That would be it.
That would be it. Yeah.
Yep. I mean, minimally, if you're out mushroom farming, you can take a turntable, you can put on.
I could.
You
I could
lose all
listen
the,
to
well, because God knows you won't have Spotify out there, no Wi-Fi out in the middle of nowhere, you know. So it's going to be off-grid, Mike, listening to all those records. So you got to preserve those things.
Anyways, enough bitching and complaining. Thank you for tuning in, and if you've made it this far, I apologize, and we will see you next week. So.
Yep. All right. Yeah. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll catch you guys next week with Financial Planner Guy. So we'll make all the announcements then. So take care, and we'll catch y'all next time.